get reaction to this from the official opposition. I'm joined now by the DA's national spokesperson, Siviwe Gwarube. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. So the DA has said that they're not in favour of the poll being postponed. Will you be opposing the application in court?
Good evening, Sally, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, I mean, we've been unequivocal about the fact that we don't support the postponement of the local government elections simply because the Constitution makes it quite clear that each and every term of either a local government election or a national government election is exactly 5 years with a 3-month grace period. So our view was that it's not advisable for the IEC to postpone an election because it's got massive constitutional implications. And so we've taken note of the decision by the IEC to adopt the report by the Moseneke inquiry today. But what we are going to be doing is we're going to be studying very carefully the process through which they are going to be asking the courts for a postponement. By that we mean that it's obviously quite important to see what tools they're going to be using, because that will be able to tell us whether or not that is in line with the Constitution and whether or not that really gives effect to the rights of many South Africans that have to be able to go to the polls and elect the representatives that they require.
So it's a postponement, proposed postponement of just a few months. Is the DA's opposition more one of principle than the practicalities? Because I would imagine that a few months here or there practically doesn't really make that much difference.
No, of course. I mean, one may say that a few months here and there doesn't make a difference. And one may say, look, practically looking at the COVID numbers, it's rather best to postpone the elections. But I do want to hasten to remind people of the following, that first of all, we have been let down by government in terms of the COVID-19 vaccination rollout. We should have been far further than we currently are. And a lot more people should have been inoculated against this pandemic, number one. And secondly, this is also just a matter of, as you say, this is a matter of precedent, and this is a matter of what the Constitution says. And of course, as Democrats in this country, we are really looking after what the Constitution says about the election. Because, Sally, you can appreciate that we could have COVID-19 in 2021, and in 2023, the government of the day could come up with another reason why there needs to be a postponement of an election. And so this can't be a decision that we take lightly. And so that's why we as the Democratic Alliance are saying that we're not going to oppose this for the sake of opposing, but we have to make sure that the process that the IEC follows, because as you would remember that the former Deputy Chief Justice didn't make any pronouncements around the constitutionality of a postponement, but rather made findings on his hearings. And so we're going to be looking very carefully around that, because again, we can't just simply, whether it's by a month or 3 months or 4 months, this is not a decision that South Africa should ever make lightly.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and that there are important principles at stake here, and our Constitution always needs to be guarded. Do you accept, though, that, as you say, with our vaccination program being late, that by October we won't have enough people vaccinated, but by February we very likely will? And also, if we've seen the behaviour of certain political parties, the EFF calling for that march outside SAPRA offices recently, it was a massive super spreader event, potentially. You know, relying on political parties not to do mass rallies, not to go door to door. You know, do you agree that that is a real concern?
Look, I mean, one of the things that we did do when we were engaged with the process, because of course, Sally, we are very interested in this process and we've been very engaged with it, with the IEC from the get-go, and that's why we will continue to be, is that we made various recommendations orally and with our written submissions. And one of the things that we made an argument about is that the readiness of political parties to campaign or to take their message to various South Africans cannot be the reason why we need to postpone elections. But of course, what we are hearing from the IEC is that, and we've always held that if the IEC, as the custodian of rolling out elections, are themselves saying that they're not in a position and the capacity to roll out free and fair and safe elections, then we will have to see how then they proceed from there. So we can't essentially just simply stick to the point of saying we will oppose it at all costs when the very custodians of the elections can't essentially guarantee a free and fair and a safe election. And so that's why now we are being guided by the IEC. We noted their comments today and their presentation today, but we're going to have to see how then they proceed from here on. But I do also want to add, Sally, one more thing, that it's absolutely important for political parties to not view themselves as passive participants in this process. We are leaders in our country and in society, and it's absolutely crucial that in as much as the IEC has the role to play in delivering a safe election, even in February or January, whenever it is, political parties too have a role to play to make sure that they engage South Africans in a way that keeps them safe. It can't simply be left up to the IEC to do this if we really care about South Africans and their well-being.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening to explain the DA's position. That was DA National Spokesperson Siviwe Gwarube there.